The entire built environment that we inhabit for staying, working, recreation, and the spaces we utilize in our day-to-day life is architecture. Whether we realize it or not, architecture defines our lives both mentally and physically, and in many more ways than we can think of. One can never escape architecture. Architecture becomes us and we become architecture.
Architecture to me is a sense of wonder. Architecture to me is a sense of glorification of life. And architecture to me is celebration.
It's one of the oldest profession. The men, when they started living on a desert or on a hillside or wherever, they needed a hut, they needed a building. And that was part of a necessity of a building, where buildings were instruments for survival. But as time went by, they became expressive. Buildings became a work of art that talks about something which is significant in the society, something which people can look at and say, we believe in this. This represents us. And therefore, a building becomes architecture when that happens.
Architecture enjoys its oldest association with nature. The two are inseparable, and that is exemplified in one of the greatest works of architecture.
Architecture actually tells the society where it might be 10, 15, 50 years from now, where it needs to go. Through images, that is the buildings, a new way of looking at life becomes possible.
And a human being, they want to fly, no? I mean, Musk is wanting to go to moon. Why? Because that is the aspiration, to cross the boundaries. That's how architecture manifests.
Architecture is now looking beyond the realms of the earth and exploring possibilities of life on the moon and Mars. Architecture is the endorsement because of which architects and scientists are now exploring possibilities of life in space.
Then architecture is a visual and plastic, meaning sculptural phenomenon. So you have to think like a painter, you have to think like a sculptor, you have to work with color and texture and light to find out something which makes sense and which makes you feel happy.
The buildings must mean something to the society. Building must raise your aspiration, your emotions, your spiritual upliftment. That is where it becomes work of art.
The fundamental object of architecture is the building, and I think that's the easiest association that everyone has with architecture, the building. But I think over years, over time, architecture has had to extend itself to a broader discussion of the built environment.
Ultimately, this is the core training of an architect, to look ahead. That which is not there, the building is not yet, but we visualize it, we imagine it, and we realize it. So there is that capacity is cultivated to look ahead in future.
Architecture profession is a universal kind of profession which embraces so many other parallel fields like economics, sociology, and technology. Apart from creativity, apart from artistic skills, and so on and on. Unlike any other profession, let's say medical or engineering, which focuses in a silos kind of thing where you work in a definite pattern. But inputs from architectural education, inputs into architectural education are very varied. And as a result, because you teach technology, you teach advanced materials, you teach construction techniques, and design is universal anyways.
So the course in architecture does not say this is a subject, this is what is true and right, and you have to learn that, learn that, learn that, learn that, learn that, learn that. Once you do that, give an exam and through. No, it doesn't work like that.
No matter how many books you read, no matter how many sheets you make, unless until you don't go out there and absorb or maybe make it on your own, you're never going to understand it.
A number of people wonder as to what are the qualifications that you need to join an institution of architecture. And I would say really it's the main qualification that we need is an ability to understand the world around you, a sensitivity to all the issues that are around you, whether it's social or environmental, and a willingness to bring about that change.
The future of the profession of architecture is negotiated in the schools of architecture. And that negotiation happens in a laboratory called studio.
The word studio comes from studium, which is an emphasis on practice which doesn't have definite result in mind. It has a investigation, it has a kind of iterative method of exploration rather than fixed results. You have to understand perhaps cities, you have to understand ecologies, you have to understand complex social problems. All of these are ways of grappling with the phenomena in actual practice that you will be dealing with.
How I started, like my grandmother inspired me to have our place of our own, and how it is made me feel like okay, I can create certain thing. And before entering to the architecture, I was just thought okay, my goal or my vision was limited to having a small space for me and my grandmother.
When a house becomes home, when it is your home, you have memories overlapped onto it. So a home becomes collection of memories. Each corner has a memory. You relate each corner with those memories, and that's what it becomes more sacred, more wonderful space.
Architecture is a collection of memories that provides not only physical but also a psychological sanctuary. Its owners return from periods away, and on looking around them, they remember who they were. Architecture has always been a guardian of identity.
In a class of 30 or 40 students, there are 30 or 40 different individuals here. Each one has different background. They come from different exposures. They have different way of looking at world. They have different aspirations.
From first year to fifth year, there is this kind of evolution as a person itself. You will get evolved. So you'll get to see a lot of things as an architect. You don't see it as a building or a design.
So as a person, I started looking everything very critically. Even though looking at this certain wall, I think why this is made like in this specific measurement. What would be the use of that?
As an architect, you have to be sure what you're designing and who are you designing for. The student conceives an idea and works on it in consultation with the teachers. Here, the role of the teacher is very important.
It's a course where you say, okay, this is the situation. Now find out how you would respond to it. And so the student is continuously in the mind of an explorer.
So I am putting bricks together, this together, etc. I am creating a combination of putting proportions, scale, the material, the thickness, the positioning, and the sunlight, and the shadows, and the rains. And then they say, this is architecture.
So in the process you study culture also. You have to study history because you learn everything. You don't have to invent the wheel every time. You have to know for each time period what was the technology available and then how architects dealt with that technology and created such wonderful masterpieces, which we have reference of that for last thousands of years, and you learn through that.
I think architecture is a profession which can actually make human and nature work together as compared to most of the other professions.
Architecture is also a profession that needs to balance between playing the role within the structure of a market, a client, an economy, and also as a profession has a responsibility towards the larger fabric of society and culture within which we work.
Meeting a deadline is always part of the course. After all, architecture at the end of the day is a job to be done. Architectural reviews are popularly called juries.
And as each student responds, the teacher works with the student to say, hey, that's an interesting idea, but how about if we did that a little bit? Or the teacher says to him, now this requires you to have an understanding of structural systems. Go and look up that book or go and look up that building.
Architecture is about addressing problems and finding solutions that are ecologically sound, economically viable, and solutions which are long-term, which are ones that can actually bring about a change to society that we so need today.
The designing is not only restricted to buildings, but it is also related to the society. How you make that design with people and with that fabric.
The purpose of architecture includes service to society, and we as a student and practitioner make a difference.
I also think that understanding different cultures is very important for architectural education, and if we don't study them, then how are we supposed to design for them?
Architecture has a duality. It's both a vocation as well as a discipline. By discipline, it means that it involves knowledge, a form of knowledge, a mode of knowledge, which is for its own sake, to be a better human beings, to give rise to better societies.
So 5 years is a good time to learn many skills that are the necessity for functioning as an architect. But I think it is the question of your attitude that is something that you have to keep open, I think you have to learn to mature faster.
Architecture is one career where you're constantly learning. As a student of architecture, your course is so varied and so growth oriented that there are new realizations every day, every semester, and through the 5 years that you are an architecture college. When you graduate from an architectural institution, you realize that your education is still not fulfilled, because when you go out into the real world, there's so many issues that you need to deal with. So a student of architecture, you are always.
Architecture field itself is very wide, and not 5 years is enough to completely restrict this course. You need a whole lifespan to actually learn it, and every day will be a learning in this course. Every day will create a new perspective.
Architectural profession provides you a platform of varying expertise after you graduate as an architect. You can do more than 26 or 30 kind of specializations in post-graduation.
There are job prospects in government sector for architecture students, and once you join this government sector, from assistant architect you can rise till the position of a chief architect, which is equivalent to a secretary, and in some states it's an architect in chief also. And there is such an opportunity to design varied kinds of buildings, from small residence to a bigger projects like judicial court complexes, DAC complexes, jails, and even cow sheds. To enter into government sector, you have to meet eligibility criteria, which is different from state to state, and mainly it's about you have entrance tests, then you come through some service commissions, and through interviews.
From designing minute particle to looking at the macroscopic scale, even designing, there are architects who are like working under ISRO, and there is this from small particle of sand to the biggest particle of that ISRO and that missions. It involves various fields in it.
The scope of architecture is very bright in our country. We should explore the possibility of working with the government, which is the largest investor in the infrastructure sector these days, with so many schemes by the government, like the smart city concept, you call it, the urban development schemes, the rural development schemes, the empowerment of the rural sector, the villages, and then you have Awas Yojanas of so many kinds these days. This phenomenal and huge scope that an architect can contribute and has as a future.
India is a developing country, hence it has to look inwards towards its own needs, while at the same time it has to contribute to the world cause. The role of the architect is becoming more and more crucial in today's time. From finding solutions to mass housing involving optimizing space, architects are now playing the role of environmental crusaders. Through the practice of sustainable architecture, the professionals are reducing the carbon footprint. Buildings are now being seen as habitats that are environmentally friendly. The landscape of professional architecture is changing much faster and more dramatically than anyone could have predicted. Sustainability is seen as a new paradigm. It is the foundation of a new worldview, and it's questioning our design consciousness.
The new education policy, which is now being implemented, I think very shortly, gives a tremendous amount of flexibility to a student to exit any time he wants to, come back and study, continue architecture or any other subject for that matter. There's a 1-year exit, there's a 2-year exit, there's a 3-year exit, there's a 5-year exit, and so on and on. After 1 year you get a certificate, after 2 years you get a diploma and then a degree and so on and on. So this I think will be the hallmark which will change architectural education to a great extent, because the involvement of professionals will come in and education system will get liberated from the whole thing.
Council of Architecture is a body established in the year 1972 by Government of India. And Council of Architecture has a responsibility to regulate education, regulate profession and even register the architects. So all those students who are interested to pursue the profession architecture, you have to undertake NATA aptitude test, and the whole detailed information regarding this test you will find in our website.
So for those of you who really want to make a difference in this world, come here and join architecture.